Joe Biden really came out swinging against those who've called on him to step aside as the Democratic candidate at this year's election. He held a rally in Wisconsin, which is one of a handful of states that could decide the outcome of the election, and he argued that Democratic voters had comprehensively endorsed him in the party's primaries earlier this year, suggesting that voters across the country had backed him to be the nominee, and now there were others who were trying to push him out. Joe Biden again referred to his debate performance last week. He said it wasn't his best, and he made a couple of jokes about his age, but he insisted he wasn't too old to do the job and that he wasn't too old to beat Donald Trump, someone who he argues isn't fit for office and someone who he describes as a convicted felon. Now, these were scripted remarks from the president. He was using a teleprompter on stage, and that is one of the criticisms that Joe Biden has faced, that it is one thing to deliver this sort of performance in a tightly controlled environment. There were still a couple of verbal stumbles, but it's another to really deliver when the pressure is at its most intense. But the president remains defiant. Here is some of what he told supporters in Wisconsin earlier.
You voted for me to be your nominee, no one else. You, the voters did that. And despite that some folks don't seem to care who you voted for, well, guess what? They're trying to push me out of the race. No! Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020. Well, by the way, we're going to do it again in 2024.
Now, despite that insistence from the president, the calls for him to step aside keep growing louder. We've had several Democratic members of Congress coming forward and saying that they think he should withdraw from the race. We've had a Democratic governor, the governor of Massachusetts, someone who was in a meeting with the president earlier this week alongside governors from across the country. She has said that he should carefully evaluate whether he's the best person to take on Donald Trump, and a group of business leaders has written to the White House arguing that he should drop out. Now, Joe Biden is sitting down for an interview with a major American TV network. This is not something that he often does, and this interview is going to be very, very closely watched. It's being filmed today. It wasn't supposed to go out to be broadcast for another couple of days. That has been brought forward, so we will see that interview within hours. We talk about, make or break moments in political campaigns, but there is a pretty broad view that this really could be critical to whether or not Joe Biden can keep his campaign alive.